Hush. When the voices of everyone in Sunnydale are stolen, Buffy and the commandos separately try to figure things out.
We open with Professor Walsh talking about communication, but Buffy's too busy pining over Riley to really be paying attention.
Walsh calls Buffy over to demonstrate something and tells her to lie down on the desk.
She then calls Riley over, who proceeds to grab her and make out.
The room suddenly gets dark and everyone disappears.
Buffy starts to suspect they're actually in A Nightmare on Elm Street when she hears a young girl singing a nursery rhyme.
The gentlemen are coming by.
Riley puts his hand on her shoulder, but it's not Riley, it's Freddy, it's a monster. And Buffy wakes up in class. So I guess she decided to run with that good performance or whatever Walsh was complimenting her for in that earlier episode.
When Buffy and Willow walk out, Willow snoops while Buffy tells Riley about his part in the dream. And when they try to talk about what they're doing that evening, they have to make stuff up to keep their secrets secret, which neither one does convincingly. Buffy tells Giles that the little girl said the gentlemen are coming.
And it turns out that Spike is no longer tied up and is eating all of Giles' food.
Anya and Xander show up talking about their relationship, and Anya questions how Xander really feels about her, accusing him of just using her for sex.
Giles requests that Xander and Anya take care of Spike for a while, since he has a friend coming to visit, which all three of them are against.
Willow attends a Wicca meeting on campus and is put off by the fact that they aren't actually interested in magic. They just talk about typical New Agey stuff.
Like bake sales? Is that what you consider New Agey?
No, but they talk about like their energies and whatever. And when Willow tries to say something about it, they all make fun of her.
One girl, Tara, seems to want to follow Willow's train of thought, but she's shut down.
Afterward, Willow tells Buffy how disappointing it was and asks about Riley. Buffy says they always get too nervous about things, and she doesn't like that she has to hide her slayerness from Riley.
At the same time, he's doing the same thing, while in his secret, underground, supernatural army base.
Xander ties up Spike in his basement before going to bed, and Spike makes fun of his relationship with Anya.
And Giles' visitor, Olivia, has arrived, and they immediately get to business. And she was the woman who wasn't wearing pants in that other episode, right?
Yeah, it was hard to recognize her with pants on, but yes, it was her. We see one of the gentlemen
hiding out in what looks like the Addams family house.
And he's opening up a box, which releases the Cenobites. Which causes something to exit everyone's mouths while they sleep.
And it mimicked a commercial for treatment of dry mouth.
Do you often experience the feeling of a dry mouth? It can be the side effect of many medications. Dry mouth can be frustrating, and ignoring it can lead to cavities, bad breath, and oral problems.
The next morning, Buffy wakes up and goes to the communal bathroom, which is probably the thing I miss the least out of all the things from college.
When Buffy gets back to her room and tries to talk to Willow, they both find that they have lost the ability to speak, as has everyone else.
Including the commandos.
We see Riley and his friend try to take the secret elevator down to the underground facility, but it stops and asks for vocal identification, which seems to surprise them. Why would it start going down first? Did it just forget to ask for confirmation?
It did the retinal scan to start moving, and then it needs the vocal scan later because the script said so.
Yeah, what a good design. Super smart Riley tries to enter an override code before the elevator kills them, but he can't remember the code. How professional of him. And some kind of gas starts coming out near the bottom of the elevator, but luckily Professor Walsh opens the door before they die. But that gas was still there, and they don't seem concerned about it. Buffy and Willow walk down the street, just to see how things are collapsing, I guess, and we see a guy helpfully selling mess age boards, which I thought was pretty funny, and realistic.
Yeah, charging $10. Buffy and Willow make it to Giles' house, where Buffy notices the words to the rhyme could indicate the cause of everyone losing their voice. And the gang sees a news report discussing how the whole town is affected. We've wondered in the past if the outside world is aware of what happens in Sunnydale, and now that we can confirm they do, it opens up the door to way too many questions since so much weird shit has happened in this town.
But I'm glad they stuck that in there. It does add at least some kind of element of realism.
I am too, but I know they're not going to continue to run with it. It's just going to get thrown away. That's the part that irritates me the most.
Yeah, that's probably true. Then Buffy says,
while Walsh has the high-tech synthesized speech of 90s computers.
So, Help maintain order. We will find an answer.
In town, Buffy encounters Riley stopping a fight. They each indicate that they have to go do something elsewhere, but before they go their separate ways, they kiss.
In the Adams clock tower, there are a bunch of the smiling monsters who all float for some reason, and they're accompanied by
some Renfield types. Their performances and the music were all very theatrical. While Giles sleeps, Olivia gets up and sees the gentleman floating around outside.
Two of the gentlemen go to a college kid's room and start cutting him up, but he is unable to scream. And it turns out this has been happening all over town, and they're collecting hearts, which still beat in the jars for some reason.
The next morning, Buffy finds that dead kid's room, and the cop outside does nothing to impede her from disturbing the crime scene. Olivia draws the gentleman for Giles, and he sees an article in the paper about the slayings. And I like how the headline says, "Brutal slaying shocks silent community," when people die there all the time.
Right.
And who replaced the mayor in this town? Is that something that's ever going to come up?
That's a good question.
For some reason, the drawing of just some crazy-looking dude you'd see at Walmart makes Giles remember something.
He connects some dots and pulls out a book of fairy tales. He puts together a whole presentation for the gang, accompanied by a dance macabre,
which was dumb but funny,
revealing that the gentlemen are fairy tale monsters who collect 7 hearts, and they steal voices so no one can scream. When Xander asks how to kill them, there's a good joke in there when Buffy mimics staking without a stake,
which she then has to clarify.
Giles reveals that a voice can kill them, and Willow intelligently suggests a recording, but Giles says that won't work, although he doesn't explain why.
Because it's supernatural.
But how many times is that always the solution in things where there's something supernatural from a long time ago and they hadn't predicted technology, and that's how they beat them?
I think you just really like Mars Attacks, and you want the same ending, which we kind of get later, so...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And when Giles puts up a picture of Buffy, she is offended. And I like how he drew her holding a bow and arrow, which she never uses. She gets ready to go out on patrol, and Riley and his friends are also loading up on their gear.
Elsewhere, Tara, the insecure girl from Willow's Wicca group, looks up Willow's address and is spotted and chased by the gentlemen and Renfields, while Buffy and Riley are separately beating them up as they both make their way to the clock tower.
Tara runs into the dorm building and starts knocking on doors, but no one will open. She seemingly makes it to Willow's room, and Willow's about to open the door, but it turns out it's not Willow's room. And we have a misdirect stolen straight from Silence of the Lambs. But I thought it still worked.
She runs into Willow, who decides to run with Tara instead of just back into her room and shutting the door, like any normal person would do.
I don't know. If I knew they were right outside the door and I had a chance to run somewhere else, I would run somewhere else.
But they're clearly chasing Tara.
Yeah, because she's out in the hall, but now Willow's out in the hall too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Why would you stay out in the hall? Go back in your room.
No, because then they know you're in there. They know somebody's in there. They know you've seen them.
What, they're going through this whole dorm assuming no one's in any of these rooms?
No, but you've already had personal interaction with them. I think it makes way more sense to go run out down the hall than to go back into the room and just close the door.
Well, why did Willow run out in the hall in the first place?
To see who was knocking and if they needed help, because she's a protagonist.
Yeah, she should have been smart like everyone else and just not open the door.
From the perspective of just trying not to get killed, yeah.
Yeah, which is what normal people would do.
I would have gone out and fought them, and I probably would have died, but still, it would have happened.
Mm-hmm. Probably would have joined up with them.
Well, you know, who wouldn't want jars of hearts on their desk?
Buffy and Riley both arrive at the clock tower,
marking the first time that Buffy has actually chased a monster down that she tracks to the tower.
And they are surprised to see each other.
Riley's gun turns out to be some kind of electric thing, so naturally, instead of shooting everyone with it, he resorts to physical combat.
Back at Giles, Xander enters and misinterprets Spike's actions as biting Anya, and when he goes to rescue her, she is very moved by his actions.
It's the first time that Xander has shown how much he cares for Anya, so they go off to bang, which makes everyone uncomfortable. Tara and Willow lock themselves in a room, and Willow struggles to use telekinesis to move a vending machine. Probably would have helped if she unplugged it first.
Wait, they lock themselves in a room? Like I said, they should have done the first time, but they're just doing it
they
now.
Had nowhere
all of
else
a sudden?
To go.
Yeah, they had Will's room.
Yeah, a small dorm room is better than whatever this big cafeteria. They're trying to escape. They're not trying to lock themselves in a room if they can do something else, if they can get away.
You know what else that room has? Windows. And you know what the room doesn't have that they're in right now? Windows.
But you know what else was in that room that wasn't in Willow's room? A vending machine, in case they get hungry and want to eat some Cheetos.
Cheeto snacks are the much-loved cheesy treats that are fun for everyone. You just can't eat a Cheeto snack without licking the signature Cheetle off your fingertips. And wherever the Cheetos brand and Chester Cheetah go, cheesy smiles are sure to follow.
So go ask at your local Walmart for Cheetos brand snacks.
Cheetos, dangerously cheesy.
Tara locks hands with Willow, surprising her, and together they manage to move the vending machine, which magically also causes the monsters to stop banging on the door outside. Up in the clock tower, one of the Renfields throws a barrel at Buffy, but unlike Klingons, Slayers have backup spines, a part of the Buffyverse lore that most people are not aware of.
Buffy has located the hearts, but is being held down, and Riley uses his zap gun to save her, but she just gets held down again, and then of course it runs out of power.
They fight some more, and Buffy gets cut or something. I wasn't really sure what happened there. Buffy recognizes the box from her dream and signals Riley to smash it. And he breaks the wrong thing at first. I thought his reaction was funny.
He eventually shatters the box, and Buffy is able to scream, which causes a Star Trek level of head explosions, which were thankfully practical and not CGI.
Tara doesn't explain until the next day for some reason that she went to find Willow so they could try a spell to fix things. Tara says that her mother was a witch with a lot of power like Willow. And Willow gives a surprisingly pretty accurate assessment of her own capabilities, mentioning how often her use of magic backfires. But I'm sure that won't prevent her from messing around with crap like that again.
Or getting mad when other people point out the things that she just pointed out.
And Tara even encourages her, which is the last thing she needs. It was pretty cheesy.
Speaking of cheesy, did you know that the first Cheetos product was Crunchy Cheetos, invented in 1948? Crunchy Cheetos remained the brand's sole product for 23 years until the introduction of Cheeto Puffs in 1971.
I did know that, because I love Cheetos.
Me too. They are just one of the snack varieties included in the Frito-Lay Munchies snack mix. But let's get back to the episode.
Giles talks to Olivia, who says she never believed him about any of the monster stuff he always talked about. He asks if it's too scary for her, and her response is not very optimistic.
And she's pretty calm for just having learned all this stuff is real, and that it happens in the town she's in right now. If she were smart, she would just immediately start packing her bags and leave.
Yeah, but they gotta do the relationship thing, even though she's a character that we know nothing about. We know she doesn't like to wear pants, which is, she's a relatable character. But other than that, I don't know.
Riley visits Buffy, and things are awkward since they now know about each other's nightly activities, and he says they have to talk, but they both sit in silence as the episode ends.
And it shouldn't have been all that awkward, because all Buffy has to say is, well, you've seen me fight, I'm the Slayer, I hunt monsters. And all Riley has to say is, yeah, me too. Problem solved. Relationship mended. Drama over. Hush. Overall?
Okay, did Danny Elfman score this episode? A ton of the music sounded like it was straight out of Batman Returns, not to mention the way that the gentlemen were floating around town and moving their head and arms was very Tim Burton. What a relief it would be to have this happen for real, at least for a while. Get some peace and quiet. I would not be scared or freaking out. I'd probably just go back to bed. And I'll tell you, if this happened today, it would not be as dramatic, since my kids don't physically talk to their friends anyway. It's all through their phones. Through Snap or Clip or whatever the hell they use. And this, people not being able to talk, is what made it on the news for the rest of the world. Not the town sacrificing its children or the mayor turning into a giant monster, because those are things that happened in public. Again, if the outside world is aware of this place, then they would be aware of all the shit that happens here. I'm surprised the National Guard hasn't shown up at least 8 to 10 times already. Not to mention a bunch of government-funded scientist teams and everything.
That raises questions about the commandos. Are they working for or with the government? Who is at the top of that chain?
And we've seen the scope of how large their base of operations is. But why does it seem like their only physical enforcement is Riley and 2 other idiots? I would think they would have a huge faction of people. And even though we've seen some people in the background, it seems like Riley is in charge. If there was one person I would not put in charge, it would be a dumb college kid who walks around with all of his gear and his friends talking about stupid college things. This episode did handle multiple things happening at once in separate locations better than any episode I can think of. I was actually pretty impressed. I'm glad Willow has managed to get away from being dragged into Buffy's drama and can be on her own again. It was a step back when she stopped being independent at the beginning of the season and started living with Buffy. And now she has another character, Tara, who we know nothing about, to generate new experiences with, assuming that Tara sticks around. So that's a plus. And this was an example of a character being introduced in a way that seems organic and makes sense, unlike pretty much every other character in the show that's introduced. I'm not sure why Olivia was in this episode though. She didn't do anything other than show up. I thought she was going to contribute to the solution in some way, and by the end, I was confused as to why she was there. Is she going to be sticking around now? Because in past episodes, she just puts on her pants and disappears. I'm glad that Riley and Buffy know about each other, and we didn't drag that out for the whole season, because that's what I was expecting. But I do predict that Riley will not tell Walsh, even though there's no reason not to. Gotta get some of that dumb drama in there somewhere. I would be happy to be wrong.
I didn't even think about that possibility, but that unfortunately sounds plausible.
And the gentlemen were fairy tale monsters. So did they not come out of the Hellmouth or whatever? What caused them to show up? And since they're specifically fairy tale monsters, does that mean the door's open for all fairy tale monsters? Because that's a whole nother thing, outside of hell and demons, right?
I mean, it could just be a real monster that fairy tales were made about.
That is true.
I think you're reading into that too much.
That's true. Alright.
I accept your apology. Continue.
If you think you're going to edit in me saying, I'm sorry, you're out of line. But I did like this episode. I thought, again, for having multiple things happen, but handling it a lot better than in the past. I like this one. I gave it an A-.
Dang, okay. I gave it a B. I thought this was a pretty good episode, with good humor, decent character stuff, and villains that were a bit more effective than usual, although they did remind me of that eyeball guy from Killed by Death. I do wish we learned a bit more about them, but either way it worked. Part of why the villains were better is that they were treated seriously. Again, there was a lot of humor in the episode, but the tonal changes were handled much more appropriately than usual. The lack of dialogue for so much of it probably helped both with that and with keeping the characters from saying anything that made them seem too stupid. Any instances of characters being dumb here was intentional and played for laughs, which worked, and you didn't have any of the aggressive moping we've had to endure for so long. I'm surprised Buffy is learning about Riley's situation so quickly after it was introduced, and like you said, I'm glad they didn't drag it out, where they would have to keep coming up with dumb sitcom-y setups where they have to hide what they're really doing from each other. The ending with Buffy and Riley did still have the flavor of needless melodrama though, which is disappointing. The themes of this episode were just as heavy-handed as episodes we've seen before, especially with that intro dream sequence with Walsh talking about communication right in your face from the very first lines of dialogue of the entire episode, but their incorporation into the overall episode was handled more effectively than usual, and it felt like it just fit in instead of pointing it out like they usually do. I've enjoyed the last 3 episodes of Buffy in a row. Is this the turning point that everyone keeps saying is coming?
I hope so.
We shall see. In the meantime, I'm hungry, so I think we're done.
You know what would sate that hunger of yours? Some nice, crunchy Cheetos. While Cheetos was the first snack food of its kind, competing products in the snack food category have since emerged. But, as of 2010, Cheetos remains as the top-selling cheese puff in America. And you can use it in all kinds of recipes which you can find on Cheetos.com, like Cheetos Flamin' Hot Chocolate Gingerbread Cookies, Pawsome Bacon Ranch Cheese Ball, Dangerously Cheesy Mac and Cheetos, Cheesy Cheetos Turkey Parm, Cheetos Flamin' Hot Mozzarella Sticks, Cheetos Mac-O-Lanterns, Cheetos Flamin' Hot Bacon Ranch Cheese Ball, Cheetos Flamin' Hot Queso Tacos, Cheetos Flamin' Hot Birthday Cupcakes, Cheetos Sweet and Spicy Chili Meatballs, Cheetos Crusted Fried Pickles, or my personal favorite dessert, a hot chocolate shake. Cheetos, the cheese that goes crunch. I'm sorry.